The scooter was still running. You can hear it, the engine idling at the curb, the low mechanical hum of something waiting. The rain has stopped. The street is empty in the way that streets are never empty, not really. Not at 3 in the morning in a city where something happened once and never fully finished happening. You check the mirror. She was there a moment ago. You felt her weight behind you on the seat. You felt her hand graze your arm when she leaned forward to point at a turn. You heard her laugh, low and unhurried, like someone who was not in a rush to get anywhere because she had already arrived at the only place she was ever going to be. Now the seat is empty. You stop the scooter. You look down both sides of the road. You say her name once, then twice, then a third time, louder, and the city absorbs it without returning anything. The tea seller warned you. The policeman warned you. Even the homeless man sleeping in the doorway watched you pass with eyes that were not curious. They were sorry. You just did not understand why until now. Her name was Priya, and she has been walking this road for 11 years. His name was Marcus Webb, 24 years old, from a good part of Atlanta, the kind of good that meant his parents still paid his rent while pretending they were not, and Marcus went along with this arrangement while pretending he did not notice. He was handsome in the way that made things easy for him. He had never been turned down for anything, a job, a table at a restaurant, a girl's number, and so he had developed the quiet arrogance of someone who mistakes convenience for character. He had a girlfriend back in Atlanta. Her name was Dana. They had been together for 3 years. She sent him messages every day. He did not always answer them. Marcus had flown to Chennai in June with a group of friends for the opening of a club someone's cousin was launching near the marina. The city met him with heat and gray clouds and the kind of rain that does not fall so much as hang in the air like a curtain. He checked into his hotel, changed his shirt twice, and went to the club. It was terrible. The music was wrong, the crowd was thin, the liquor selection was nothing he recognized. By 11, he was standing outside under an overhang, smoking a cigarette he did not really want, scrolling through his phone to find something better to do with the next 3 hours before he could reasonably go to sleep. He opened Facebook, typed in his location, started scrolling through people he might know in the city, and then he found her profile. Her name was listed as Priya. Her bio said Chennai. Her last photo had been posted years ago, but the face in it was the kind of face that stops you mid-scroll, not because of any single feature, but because of what the whole of it communicated. Something knowing, something that had seen things. He sent her a message. He did not expect a reply. She replied in 4 minutes. He planted one detail in that exchange without meaning to. He mentioned where he was standing, the name of the street, the overhang above the club entrance. She said, "I know exactly where that is. I'll come to you." 10 minutes later, a scooter pulled up to the curb. The rider lifted her helmet, and Marcus Webb, who had spent 24 years being effortlessly certain about things, became uncertain about everything all at once. Her name was Priya. She extended her hand and smiled and said he was welcome to the city, and something about the way she said it, so complete, so without expectation, unsettled him in a way he could not immediately locate. They rode through the city. She circled certain streets more than once. He asked if she knew the way. She said she sometimes forgot. He found this charming. He filed it. At midnight, he mentioned that the streets were empty, and she said yes, it gets like this, and he told her that back home, it felt like morning at midnight, like the city never actually stopped, and she said something quiet and strange, that she wished she had been born somewhere like that. He laughed and said she could still go there, and she went silent in a way that was not just a pause, it was a door closing. They pulled over near a tea stall when the rain picked up, a small operation under a large umbrella, no proper building, just a folding table and an old man working a kettle with the slow efficiency of someone doing the same thing they had done every night for 40 years. The old man looked at Marcus when he arrived, not at Priya, only at Marcus. Marcus asked for 2 cups. The old man made 1. He said nothing about this. He handed Marcus the cup, and then, quietly, while Priya stood at the far edge of the umbrella, looking out at the rain, he leaned across the table and said, "Do not go to Blue Cross Road tonight." Marcus laughed. He did not know what Blue Cross Road was. He thanked the old man and walked back to Priya and handed her the cup and did not mention what had been said to him. Later, when everything had already happened, he would think about that moment constantly, the way he had laughed, the cup he had handed to her, whether she had actually held it, whether it had actually been warm. A police vehicle slowed beside them on a quiet stretch before the park. A plainclothes officer rolled down the window and looked at Marcus with an expression that was not suspicion so much as recognition, the recognition of someone watching a thing happen that they have watched happen before and cannot stop. He asked Marcus where he was going. He told him not to go toward Blue Cross Road. Marcus said he did not know Blue Cross Road. The officer looked at the scooter seat for a moment, then he looked back at Marcus. He gave him directions home. He said them carefully, the way you give instructions to someone you are not sure will follow them. She told him her favorite place was a short walk from where they stopped the scooter. She said it quietly with the particular softness of someone offering something they have offered before in the same words on the same road. He followed her into the dark. She had told him she had lived in Chennai for 11 years. She had told him she did not speak Tamil. She told him she had never found anyone she wanted to keep in her world, that people kept drifting out of it, that she lost interest, that something always happened before anything could settle. He was not listening to these things as information. He was listening to them as atmosphere, the way you listen to music you like, not for content, but for the feeling it makes. She took his hand in a way that was not romantic exactly. It was something else, deliberate, like something being completed, and he felt, this is the part that is hardest to explain, the part he will spend years trying to articulate, he felt suddenly, completely in love, not the version of love that builds slowly over shared meals and small revelations, the other kind, the kind that happens all at once, like a light switching on in a room you did not know was dark. He thought, I do not want to leave tomorrow. He looked around. The park surrounded them. The trees were old and dense, and the rain had left everything black and silver, and his eyes adjusted slowly to the dark, and then all at once he understood what he was seeing. There were figures hanging from the branches, 3 in the nearest tree, more beyond. He stood completely still and looked from tree to tree, and the figures were everywhere, not moving, not making sound, hanging with a specific terrible stillness of things that were no longer capable of movement. He looked down. His shoes were wet, not from rain. He ran to Priya. He told her what he saw. His voice was not his voice. She held his hand again and said, "I come here every day, every night. I spend the night here. There is nothing here." Her voice was the same as it had been all evening, calm, unhurried, the voice of someone who was not in a rush to get anywhere. He looked at the trees again. He looked back at her. He said he wanted to leave. They returned to the scooter in silence. He reached for the helmet and realized he had left it in the park. He went back for it. He picked it up and wiped it on his sleeve and turned to leave and looked up at the nearest tree and saw what he had seen before. The hanging figures, still, silent, and this time he did not run. He walked back to the scooter as fast as he could without running, because some part of him understood, without being able to say why, that running would make something worse. He sat down. He started the engine. He told Priya what he had seen again, more calmly this time, and she told him again that there was nothing, that people spread rumors about this place, that she suffered because of it, that she came here every night and there was nothing. He decided to tell her how he felt. He told her he had a girlfriend in Atlanta whom he had been with for 3 years. He told her he did not love her the way he should. He told her that he had only just met Priya, and he already understood that this was a different thing, something he had not experienced before. He told her he thought he wanted to marry her. He was still talking when he checked the mirror. The seat behind him was empty. He stopped the scooter. He called her name. He walked the road in both directions and called her name and looked in doorways and in the shadows of the trees lining the street, and she was not there. There was no sound except his own voice and the distant call of a night bird and the low drip of water from a gutter above. He thought, she fell. She must have fallen. He thought this because it was the only explanation that fit inside a world that still made sense. He drove to the nearest police station. He sat inside the station for the rest of the night. Not in a cell. They had checked him for alcohol and found none, and his distress was visible enough that the duty officer had let him sit in a chair near the front desk. He sat there and looked at the floor and thought about his life in the specific, unsparing way that only arrives in the early hours of the morning in a foreign city when something has gone wrong. He was 24 years old. He had done nothing with it. He had a girlfriend who sent him messages every day, and he answered them when he felt like it. He had parents who paid his rent and he let them. He had gotten on a flight to Chennai because someone mentioned girls and alcohol. He had walked into a dark park at 3 a.m. because a beautiful stranger had held his hand. He had told her he wanted to marry her, and she had disappeared while he was still talking. Before dawn, the plainclothes officer from the road came into the station. He looked at Marcus for a moment, then he sat down across from him and put a folder on the table between them. He said, "I know where you were tonight." Marcus said, "I was on Blue Cross Road." The officer said, "Yes." He opened the folder. Inside was a photograph of a young woman, dark hair, something knowing in her face, something that had seen things. Her name had been Priya. She was from Delhi originally. She had come to Chennai several years ago to see a man she had been in love with, a man who had, by the time she arrived, already married someone else. She ended her life on Blue Cross Road. The date at the top of the file was 11 years ago. Marcus looked at the photograph for a long time. The officer said, "She does this. She finds people. She is drawn to a certain kind of person, someone passing through the city, someone a little lost, someone who is capable of falling in love quickly. People see her and they fall in love with her because she was exactly the kind of person you fall in love with. And then they realize what she is, and some of them do not survive the realization." He said, "The tea seller at the umbrella stall. He came from Rajasthan once, years ago. He met her the same night you did. He did not leave. He is still there. He warns people now." He said, "I was a student when it happened to me. I had been in Chennai for 1 month. I met her on a rainy night in June. I watched her disappear in front of my eyes. I thought she had been struck by a passing vehicle, and I spent a week trying to find evidence of an accident that had not happened. I requested a transfer here. I told myself I was coming back to investigate. That was 8 years ago." He said, "The park, the people you saw in the trees, those are the ones who did not leave. There are not many of us left who walked back out of Blue Cross Road. Most people who fall in love with her on that road end up going back to it. Not all at once, over time. They come back and they come back until they do not come back." Marcus opened his phone. He went to the Facebook message thread. It was gone. He went to her profile. The last post was 11 years ago. A photo of a girl in a yellow jacket squinting into sunlight somewhere he did not recognize. He put the phone in his pocket. The officer put his hand on the table between them, not touching Marcus's hand, just placing it there, near it, and said, "You have people. You have a girlfriend who messages you every day. You have parents. Go home." He said, "I could not go home. The tea seller could not go home, but you still can. Go home and live your life and let it be a story you tell yourself when you need to remember what real love can cost." Marcus flew back to Atlanta the next afternoon. He did not sleep on the plane. He looked out the window at the cloud cover below and thought about 11 years. He thought about what it takes to stay in a place that hurt you, not out of stubbornness, not out of stupidity, but because something happened there that rearranged you at the level where you do not get to choose. He thought about the officer, the tea seller, the figures in the trees at Blue Cross Road, which were not intruders or monsters, but people who had walked into a love they could not walk out of. He called Dana from the airport, not because he had become someone better on that trip, not because the experience had transformed him cleanly into a more honest version of himself, but because he had spent a night sitting in a police station in Chennai, thinking about how he had told a ghost he loved her before he had admitted to the living woman waiting at home that he was sorry. The conversation was hard. It went on for a long time. It did not resolve into anything clean, but he made it. He was there for it. I think about Blue Cross Road when I think about what grief does when it is not allowed to finish. The officer said Priya was not a ghost in the way we typically picture them, malicious, cold, haunting. She was something more painful than that. She was a love story that never got to end properly, still reaching for the conclusion it was denied. There are places in the world that hold things, not because the geography is special, but because something happened there that was so unfinished it could not release itself into time. It stays, it circles, it finds the people who are most likely to understand it, and in doing so, keeps them there with it. The tea seller came from Rajasthan. The officer came from Mumbai. Marcus came from Atlanta. None of them were supposed to be there. All of them were exactly who she was waiting for. Be careful with what you open on a rainy night in a city you do not know. Not because strangers cannot be trusted, but because sometimes what reaches for you in the dark is not looking for companionship. It is looking for someone to stay.